Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm not sure how our chat's going to work out tonight. I know that I have I've cross streamed live on schedule with one of my favorite content creators that I like to sit back and watch and listen to as well. And who I'm talking about is the Cult of Con, or Connor. He has an amazing channel. He has an amazing testimony and story. His message is very clear, and I just love his content. He has a very positive vibe. And normally I would be watching him tonight. However, today I had the day off, and I was able to spend some time with my pups, and went to the dog park. And while I was at the dog park, I had Revelation 12 on repeat on my earphones, and I think I probably listened to it 50 times over and over and over again while I watched my dog play and run around and have a good time at the park. All that said, though, before I go into that, I want to clarify something that I caught in my last episode, where John Fry and Ain't Buying It, they called it out first. They saw it first, and what they're referring to and what I'm referring to is that when we were talking about the two witnesses, when I was reading that, and I referred to it as they were loved and buried, when in fact the next line as we were reading, it says that they weren't buried. So I want to correct that. I didn't mean that they were buried like that, I guess. I don't know why I read it like that, but the point from that was to take away from it was that they're not here. Their time has come and gone already. And I've often found myself falling down these certain rabbit holes that kind of teach you about who these witnesses are, and a lot of people have speculated on different people such as Moses, Elijah. Some have even said John the Baptist. So they're very different. It's one of those things that I've found throughout Scripture where it doesn't necessarily tell you certain things for a reason, and all of it boils down to is idolatry. Whether anyone ever truly figures out what the two witnesses' names were or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything for us. We don't meet them. We don't see them. Their events that take place throughout their time, all of that has already come and gone. It doesn't happen during our time, is what I'm wanting to point out with that. And so the whole point from that was that the events that took place where the two witnesses were, well, yeah, they were correct in that. Where I messed up and misread that is in that they liked them. The people of that day did not like them. The ones that were remaining left towards the end of that millennial kingdom would have been the people that would have carried over after the little season, after the millennial kingdom ended up crossing over. Oh, wow, Little Seasonist. Good to see you here, my brother. Or, yeah, brother. I'm assuming that's my brother because of the tattoo, but hopefully I got that right. Glad to see you here, Little Seasonist. I know some of the normal audience is already preoccupied in someone else's stream, so we may not have as lively a chat as we normally would. But that may not necessarily be the end of the world. We have replay and people can always come back and watch and whatnot. I know that I'm scheduled normally for Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do plan to do another live tomorrow night as well. I wanted to come in live tonight because, like I said, all of this has been on my mind and heart for the last day or so. And today it was just weighing heavy on me. So I wanted to share the things that I've learned in the past through studying Revelation 12, 13, and so forth. So as we continue with this, let me pull this up here. All right. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like I said, chat's probably not going to be rolling as deep as it normally is. However, we may get some people in here. And I'm more than humble and grateful for anyone that's in here tonight. I know this is the last minute, and some people weren't planning on listening to me live tonight. So I apologize for those that do normally plan and wish to be in here live with us. However, moving on, what I wanted to point out and get to was in the earlier episodes 1 through 7, we discovered that this Bible repeats itself several times. It does this all throughout Scripture. When it repeats itself, it does this for certain events or certain things to let you know what's important and what's not important. One thing we struggle with as people of our day is trying to place our reading lenses through the same lenses that these people are talking about. And one thing what I wanted to point out with that is as we move forward into the next few chapters, and as it builds up through these events of the little season, the millennial kingdom, the before and the after, it's going to talk about some stuff that may not mean as much to certain people without having done proper research and reading prior to that. Good evening, Jenny Murphy. Glad to see you here. Brother John Fry, love to see you here too, brother. Glad to see you guys. Jenny just says that she just finished watching the stream from yesterday. Awesome. Good. I'm glad that you were able to catch up on that. So you're right here with us then. So you're not going to be too far behind on us then as we move forward through this. I want to read a section out of the book of Jasher. This is chapter 8, and in chapter 8 of Jasher, it's talking about the birth of Abraham. And the reason I want to read this in correlation with Revelation 12 is because it'll help you understand, I think, maybe where I'm coming from and where I think this book is coming from when it talks about certain things within the Revelation prophecies. In Jasher chapter 8, verse 1, it starts out and it says, "And it was in the night that Abram was born, that all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night." Terah is the father of Abraham. So the night he was born, that's what that's telling you. "And when all the wise men and conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes toward the heaven that night to look at the stars. And they saw, and behold, one very large star from the east, and it ran in the heavens and swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. And all of the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished at the sight. And the sages understood this matter, and they knew its importance." Now, the reason I'm wanting to read this, and okay, before I continue with that, let's see. John Fry says, "I can't stick around long. I'm whooped, laid 800 foot of flooring today, falling asleep eating dinner." Oh man, I understand that, brother. Them long, hard days, they'll get you, especially as we get older. And you and I'm afraid to say, we're no longer spring chickens. So I understand a long, hard day. I appreciate you being here and for the time that you are here, Brother John. And of course, there's always replay. All right. So moving on, like I was saying, right here where we're at in verse 1 through verse 3 that I just read, the time period that they're in, they understand the spectrum of heaven and earth way better than we do. Their connection to God is way higher and stronger. More importantly, these events, this time period that Abram is born, is only a few hundred years after the flood to begin with. So most of the world would have still been in ruin. However, there were places like Babylon where Nimrod ruled from. In fact, Nimrod was the son of Cush, the son of Ham. And it kind of goes over that in the book of Jasher. It explains how Ham stole the garments of Adam from Noah, and they ended up in Nimrod's hands, and that's how Nimrod gained power and strength to rule over his kingdom and over the rest of the world. Essentially, that gauntlet or whatever it was that Nimrod had that gave him that life and that power and that strength and whatnot ended up in the hands of Esau. But that's further back, and it's for another time. But the point of all of this is these stars. When they saw these stars, they saw them as signs. They could read them and see what God was telling them from his kingdom above, telling us through signs in these stars. So when they saw this, they understood what it meant. And the reason I'm pointing this out is as it says, and they said to each other, "This only betokens the child that has been born to Terah this night, who will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth, he and his children forever, and he and his seed will slay great kings and inherit their lands." This is the bloodline lineage, historical lineage of Abraham. That's what it's talking about right there. Believe me, 10 makes a big difference. Oh wow, yeah, you are a little bit older, Brother John, but you still got a ways to go. We all still have a ways to go, I hope. At least, as far as this time goes, we have plenty of time. 54 is not that old yet. You're getting on up there. I'm getting on up there at 42. So this says here, like I said, this was saying here that the wise men and the conjurers went home that night, and in the morning all these wise men and conjurers rose up early and assembled in an appointed house. And they spoke and said to each other, "Behold, the sight that we saw last night is hidden from the king. It has not been made known to him. And should this thing get known to the king in the latter days, he will slay us. Why have you concealed this matter from me? And then we shall all suffer death. Therefore, not let us go tell the king the sight which we saw, and the interpretation thereof, and we shall then remain clear." And they did so. And they all went to the king and bowed down to him to the ground, and they said, "May the king live, may the king live. We heard that a son was born to Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of thy host, and we yesternight came to his house and ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night." What this is telling you is that they believed what they were seeing. They saw those stars. They saw the sign in the sky. They knew what it meant. Whether we understand how they knew what it meant or not, it's not relevant, or necessarily because it would kind of tell you that. But what's important is that they understood it. They believed it. And they believed it so much that they were willing to go tell the king themselves, just so that he couldn't say that they were withholding this and keeping this from them. Oh man, absolutely, brother Keith. Brother Keith says, "Please keep my health in your prayers, please." Absolutely, we will say a prayer for brother Keith and pray for his speedy recovery and whatever you got going on. In your health there, brother. I hope that everything ends up working out better for you, especially with prayer, man. Yeah, I really don't. I really hate. I hate when I hear about things like that when people are going through hard times, whether it's financial, physical, or any other type of burdens. I hate that, man. I hate that you got anything going on. So, yeah, definitely, we'll say a prayer for Keith Wilson. Um, But like I said, as what this is pointing out is just showing you the significance of how well they believed in these signs. When they saw this, it meant something to them. And as I was at the dog park earlier, I kept looking at the sky and I kept thinking to myself, if you could see the actual firmament without the haze of the blue and all of that, I'm not sure people could handle what they were seeing. It's kind of like people being scared to death. I could see a lot of people coming to the truth pretty quick by seeing that big dome that's over us. And all I'm saying is that nowadays when we see signs and symbols and star movements and patterns, it don't really mean a whole lot. We get a lot of our understanding of that from astrology and astronomy and other sources. But there is no more studying the stars and the signs and everything. Everything for us now is written. This will tell us what to look out for though, and what signs to see as we read through the scripture. And like I said, I don't want to necessarily go through this whole book, but I will try to see if I can't get the link for this, because this is a really good website for this book, so you don't necessarily have to buy it for those who like me just like to read online. Anyhow, I don't want to go through the whole book of Jasher. I just wanted to point that out because as we get into Revelation 12, we're going to realize the significance of some of this stuff that they're seeing. Hold on, let me turn this fan on. Oh. All right. Sorry about that. Got hot in here pretty quick, so I just turned that fan on. I don't want to turn my air on yet. I'm afraid it might get too cold. And when you don't have a lot of hair like me, your head gets real cold real easy. It's why I like to wear this hat. It's not a fashion statement. It's just comfortability. All right, so let me get a drink of this. In chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." We're going to learn this as we read through this, what this represents, but telling you shortly and quickly, I guess, this is just referencing the body of Christ, or like the Christ community. And then, as well as the 12 stars, represents the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 nations or 12 kingdoms of Israel, however you want to call it, 12 tribes of Israel. That's what that represents. But these are stars they're seeing in the sky, and it's a sign, it's a symbol. They're able to see this, and that's how they know what this means. Regardless that we would see it today and not know what that means, if we saw something like that, we would all be speculating today. And there are valid reasons for that, but regardless of that, that's what that's referring to. And then it says, "And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head." This is representing the child. That the child is representing Jesus being born, and it's not going to be necessarily a pleasant up life for him. I mean, it's not going to end well necessarily in the way that you would want life to end for any of you if when that time comes. I'm not saying that it's going to end permanently, but that's just saying that he's going to have that she's having a child. Through the birth and through the deliverance, there's going to be pain. There's going to be trouble, is all that's telling you. And then it goes on and it tells you about the wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon having 7 horns, 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. It's talking about the Gentile kingdoms, the Roman Empire. And as his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And this is just letting them know, hey, before once Jesus is born, once this child is born, this dragon is going to try to kill this child. It's going to try to get rid of him. Hey, that's enough. That's enough. Come over here and lay down. And I guess where I'm going with all of that is, as I was listening to this and reading this, part of my mind is telling me that it's possible that this Revelation book itself was written even before the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and so on. It's almost like this book would have came first within the New Testament. One is all I'm getting at, going with that, and you'll see that. You'll understand why I say that once I get going. What did I miss? Just turned 28 on January. Oh, congratulations. Happy birthday, Jenny. 48. We're right there in the middle, I feel like. Like at 42 and 48 and 54, we're all right there in the middle. Happy birthday. I didn't see that. I'm sorry I missed that. John Fry says, we got a lot of freezing rain at the moment. Praying we don't lose power. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely pray for you guys, Brother Keith and Brother John Fry. But what this is telling us is that this would be a sign in the sky. By the time he's writing this, he's understanding that the people are going to start seeing this. We understand that from the earlier chapter where it says, and towards the end of it, where he's told by the angel to go out to the nations. He still has people to talk to. This message hasn't made it out to everyone yet. And the reason I'm emphasizing that and pointing that out is because I think a lot of people read the New Testament as if Matthew is writing it as it's happening. But I'm pretty positive that those books didn't get written until well after, like within the first 100 years or so of Jesus's return in 70 AD, or between 33 and 70 AD. Regardless, sometime within that time period is when perhaps those other books of the New Testament would have been written. I have this suspicion that this book here, Revelation, would have been made available to the public at that time way before Matthew would have. In other words, after all of the events of tribulation, once you move into the millennial kingdom, it wouldn't be as important to know or to have understood and read all of this Revelation book as well as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because you've already been there, done that. You were there. And so you would tell people much later. And all I'm saying is that earlier, as we were reading in chapter 11, John, after having the vision and being in the spirit, is now going to be in his physical body, being told now in the physical body to go talk to these nations and to preach to all these people. And then it says, all right, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. What this is telling us is that during the same event of Jesus' birth and his upbringing, this also was taking place in heaven. Like there was a war, this war in heaven was taking place as well. The third part of the stars, that's representing a third part of the angels of God's kingdom. A third part of them were slain or thrown down with Satan. I'm not sure why I think this, and maybe this will be made clearer, but somehow I'm inclined to think that Satan and his minion or forces of demonic angels, the fallen angels, I believe perhaps that some of these angels had the ability or were permitted to go back and forth between heaven and earth up until this point, and then that ability was taken away from them. Otherwise, you would have read and learned about all of this way earlier in Scripture, and it's just odd to me how we don't hear about this until the end time about Satan and all of a third of the angels being cast down the earth. But I don't have necessarily a way to prove that yet, I don't think, but this may even help us with that as we go on. Then it says, as she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. That's specifically talking about Jesus. And her child was called up to God. That's his death. And then to his throne. That's his ascension right there. And then it says, the woman had fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. What that's talking about is the part of tribulation where the persecution of the Christians, where Christian people, the ones that would be the first Christians, ended up hiding and fleeing and whatnot. People that are not necessarily attuned to what we're discussing with the little season may have found themselves learning about the agnostic Christians. When you read and learn about or study into the agnostic Christians, this is the people they're talking about. They call them agnostic because it's a way to undermine what they were. They were just the first people, the first followers of Jesus, the martyred Christians, the ones that were trying to do right but had to hide from the Roman rule during that tribulation. That's what that's referring to when it says the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared for God. Now, I know I'm cheating there by telling y'all, but as we may not get to that actual chapter where it tells us all the things that I'm telling you. So then it says, and there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. That's why I believe that it's possible that the actual casting out of Satan from heaven didn't actually occur until Jesus arrived. It's possible that that some of the angels, even before the flood and all that, still had rights to go to and fro. I would assume based on that one line right there. Then it says, and the great dragon was cast out, and the old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out and into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. There again, that refers back, I think it was chapter 9, where it was explaining that about Abaddon and Apollyon being Satan's name, and then it goes and explains that there's 4 angels under the Euphrates River,
how they're not the same characters in here. It's just letting you know they're not the same character. There is a devil or Satan figure, but then or whether that's a physical or a singular figure or an essence, it's separate from the actual angels themselves. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. What that's telling you is that from the day man was created all the way up until this point, Satan has been upset about it. He's been mad about it. He's been crying about it, complaining about it, whining about it. He's been, why, God? Why give so much credit and so much reverence to these mortal beings, these sinners, these simple people? They don't believe, they don't know what's real and what's not real. It's all it's telling you is that this character, Satan, has had thousands of years to despise us and to try to get rid of us and try to do away with us. That's what that's telling you. Then it says, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God. God, the Creator, and the power of Christ. They come down. And then it says, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down. In other words, since Satan is now down here, these guys, God and Satan and Jesus, now are going to come after that. So he was up in heaven, they were up in heaven, now he's down here, now God and Jesus will be down here. John Fry says, hopefully we can get together this Saturday, Rev. We can get my channel set up so we can start doing live streams together. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I do go on call this weekend, this week, Thursday, Friday, something like that. I go on call, I believe, on Friday. But during the day, I'll be able to talk with you, Brother John, and we'll get that set up. I'm looking forward to that. I hope you guys also tune into that and check Brother John Fry out whenever he gets his channel up and going. I know you guys would probably love to hear what he has to say. At least I do. I like calling him and just letting him talk. It's pretty nice hearing Brother John Fry. All right. As we're moving forward, it says, as I was saying there, it's just letting you know that the kingdom of God and Jesus Christ will be on earth now, even after the Satan, and now that he's been cast down. And then it says, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives until death. It's just telling you that these people were miserable. Therefore, during Jesus's time there, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives. In other words, it's just letting you know, like I said, they were miserable while they were in service to the Lord and in service to Jesus Christ. They still, life wasn't easy for them. That's all it's telling you there. Not necessarily that they hated the fact that they loved Jesus. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what all it's telling you is that their life wasn't going to be pleasant for them. All right. Verse 12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath a short time. It's just letting you know now that the Satan's been cast down, he's super angry. He is super mad. Lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Lay down in your bed. Hey, hold on. Let me get her. What are you doing? Chill out. They're like children, these dogs. Oh, he's on his computer. We can do what we want now. So they're all, I don't know what she's doing. She needs to quit and chill out. You just came from outside. You're okay. All right, sorry about that. Moving on. Like I said, carry it back on so I don't lose my train of thought with all of this. Absolutely, Brother John, absolutely. And when the dragon saw that he was cast upon the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. What it's telling us here is that it's letting you know, it's talking about Jesus's life at this point. That's what, and most of us already understand Jesus's life up to this point. Then it says, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness and into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time for the face of from the face of the serpent. All right, so some of you have seen, let's see if I can find it. Maps, or no, flags of the nations of the world. Let's see if I can pull it up. If I can find the actual one. So a lot of you that watch this channel or have found yourself here are familiar with this map this picture of these flags that I'm talking about. Of the world, let's do 1700s. Actually, let me pull it up this way. Okay, yeah, this here. So a lot of you in the Little Season community have heard of Tartaria. You've seen this image right here of this flag. Let me pull this back up, move this over here. This image of these flags. I guess I can't really make that much bigger. But in here it shows a flag of the United States. Right below that flag, it shows a flag of Tartaria. I'm not exactly sure when this picture was printed or made or any of that. I don't think anybody really truly does. Maybe someone out in the world does. But when I came across this during my research and study, as I was going from doubt to certainty with the scripture, I was under the impression here, when it comes to America, we're the only nation really that is represented by an eagle. And what I'm getting at, where I'm going with that, is that when it says here, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness into her place, and where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. The 2 wings of the great eagle, this rabbit hole that I fell into ended up leading me into the Americas with this. And then as I was researching the 12 tribes post Jesus, post 33 AD, when you get into the Tartarian maps, you see a lot of them ended up here in the Americas. And so what all I'm saying is that if this is accurate in what I'm saying, it's likely possible that during this time when that these tribes of people that were trying to escape persecution from the Romans left Rome, traveled up over the Caucasus Mountains and into the Americas, and came down into the Americas and settled over here. And when you look at the moon map that you find through Vibes of the Cosmos, it's in Culticon's background on his channel as well. You see how small and isolated really North America and South America are from the rest of Europe and Russia and China and that whole area. And so it kind of made sense to me, but you'll get lost in that. What'll happen? You'll get to thinking that you are certain people that you may not be, just because they went down, they went here or they went there. And so it's all I'm saying. All I'm pointing out with that is that there is some significance to this, and to me, that's where I think that's what that was alluding to, is America. But I could be wrong, and I'm not saying that just because I am in America. I'm in America myself, but it is interesting how out of all the biblical places and names, America is the only one that's relatively new. And so, anyways, it just I kind of fell into that, and my research took me in that direction. This was during my journey of discovery, of course. Let's see. Spirit of Church Ministry says, when I saw Arizona's flag, all I saw was unless a man is born of water and the Spirit. All right. And then Zigzag says Mexican flag is an eagle and a snake. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Mexico's flag does have an eagle with the snake actually eating the snake. I think it's carrying it to eat it. But there again, we have to remember that Mexico today, jurisdiction wise, would have been up here in the Americas as well, and they're basically the same people. There's not much different. There's not much difference. I mean, today there's a lot of difference, I think, but not too much back then, at least, is all I'm going with that. Anyhow, in verse 16 it says, and the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened up her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Once we get back to the timeline series, I think I'll be able to show this a little bit clearer then, but this part right here, I believe, is the it's the post-millennial season, is what it's referring to in verse 17. Not the little season, but the post-millennial kingdom time period. The ones that would have been continuing to try to live according to Jesus's ways, they fought to the bitter end. It's where you start seeing all these wars in history, from the 1800s dating all the way back to the 1500s, when all these revolutionary wars started taking place. That's where that would have been within the chronological timeline. Spirit Church Ministry says the Greek word in Revelation 12 means an eagle-like vulture. An eagle-like vulture. Okay, yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying there. Okay, Revelation 12. Like I said, so as we were moving through that, and we move on to Revelation 13, this is where today a lot of the church ministries and congregations and pastors and all of that is stuck. I don't know for what purpose they choose to do this, but almost everybody gets to chapter 13 and they get stuck right there. They cannot move past it. They just refuse to move past chapter 13. You'll never hear them talk about chapters 14, 15, 16, 17. They always want to stop at 13, and they want to scare everybody today into believing that this is about to happen to you and me. This is not about to happen to you and me. Some of these things we read about do, obviously, but not all of this. And most of this has already taken place, if not all of it. And so what I'm getting at is that I feel like there's like this curse when it comes to Revelation 13 and the church. That curse was initiated by the education system and the men who developed and designed that thing. That's where these false doctrines come from. It's the misunderstanding of when in time you are and what is relevant to you and what's not. We don't know that certain things happened unless there's witnesses of it or there's some type of evidence to support it. When our education doesn't provide the information or the materials necessary to know these things, that's when you develop these conspiracy theories. A lot of these conspiracy theories start from people like myself who would have in the past been looking for the truth, found themselves reading Jasher, found themselves reading Jubilees, found themselves reading the complete works of Josephus, reading into all of that and going, wait a minute, some of this doesn't make sense. How can this be happening now when it's supposed to have already happened? Why would he say one thing mean another thing? It just becomes very confusing. And so when I was reading this, I'm understanding that either the church is purposely misled through the education system, or they're actively choosing to believe this. In chapter 13, it says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority." We are an idolizing people today. We idolize everybody. You can't watch a movie without someone having a favorite. You know, you have fans, you have subscribers, you have followers. Everybody for the most part is guilty of idolatry, whether they've realized it or not. When it comes to these descriptions, and it's talking about the bear, the feet of a bear, and his mouth as of a lion, that is there to let you understand the significance of it. It's there to let you know how scary that would have been, but it's not also there for you to cling on to that, latch onto it, and go, "Oh, that's for me." I need to be worried about that. It's why certain things don't get described in great detail, like the names of the witnesses. It didn't tell us that because they don't want you to idolize them. No one needs to be idolized, not myself included. None of us need to be idolized. Only God. Only God. That's it. But all I'm pointing out with that is, while it does give you these descriptions of what this was, it is there to scare you only to a degree, not really to scare you out of control, but to give you the understanding of how scary that would have been. In verse 3, it says, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." And what that's referring to is it's Rome. To simplify this for the ones that are new to all this is talking about Rome. Rome collapses, so to speak. It ends. There's a 1,000-year period where Rome's no longer in charge. Boom, Rome comes right back in charge again. We call it the little season, or we call it the modern era. You can call it what you want. The principles that make our modern society came from the same principles that made Rome. But to fully understand that, we really kind of do need to go back through Jasher and read a little bit more. We need to understand a little bit more about Esau and what led to the development of the Greek Empire prior to the Roman Empire. All of that is a buildup to all of this, is all that is. Okay. All right. Let's see. It says, and he opened his mouth. Let me see. Did I skip a line? There was given in the mouth to speak. Right. Oh, and they worship. Yeah, okay. I'm thinking that I was in verse 12. I mean, chapter 12. I'm in verse 13 now. And then it says, and I saw one of his heads. Oh, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. We read all that, trying to make sure I don't know why I'm having trouble finding my place. And I saw one of his heads that were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. That's talking about the Roman Empire. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. 42 months this man would be in power. This right here, where it's talking about right now, it's talking about where this is where people get the Antichrist stuff from, like the rise of the Antichrist, and then Satan coming into power right after him. That's where that train of thought comes from. That's where all this that comes from. It's in chapter 13 right here. Then it says, and there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 and 2 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. What this is talking about is Nero. Once we get into the Josephus works, you'll see that more clearly. But historically, for those that have been left out of this, it's when you go into books like Maccabees, which actually that's in the Bible, and then you have the Josephus works, and you compare all those. That's where we get the idea or the understanding that Nero would have been this person that he's talking about. That's where that comes from, I guess. So but whether that's true or not, it's not important, because it would be in here if it was necessary for you to know. All I'm saying is that when it comes to that, yeah, like for myself, I like to think it is Nero, but I also am aware that I could be wrong with that. Is all I want to point out with that. Then it says, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and power was given to him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. The reason I left that rabbit hole with Nero being this person and the Antichrist figure is because of this next line, this line I just read. And all that dwell upon the earth shall, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints. What this is talking about here are the saints from the little season. I mean, not little season, from the millennial kingdom. There weren't saints prior to that. They were prophets. You didn't have, the saints didn't come until Jesus's day or until Jesus's return. And so these saints dwelled on earth for that duration of that 1,000-year period. So Satan is going to make war with them. He wants his kingdom back. He wants his rulership of the earth back. That's what this is telling us right now. And it says, all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Like a lot of people, I got lost here because I can almost hardly conceive the idea of a world where Christians end up worshiping Satan, worshiping a beast, or worshiping anything other than God. When I think of God and read through scripture, everything that I read about him is that he doesn't change. All means all, always means always. That doesn't ever change. And when it says right here, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, the names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. What this is talking about right here are, first it says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. That people is not the same people as this next people, when it says, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Well, actually, let me correct what I just said. That I guess this is the same people. Reason I was saying that it was not the same people, I guess I thought it was going to clarify that it doesn't. But it says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life. Those were the people that didn't accept Jesus, that somehow lived and survived and remained throughout the millennial kingdom. In other words, during that 1,000-year period that Jesus reigns on earth, you will have people that live long lives, that live superhero style type lives. But then you will also have regular people just living normal lives. Maybe they're good, decent people, but maybe they're not. But regardless, they're not martyred. They end up surviving the tribulation, and they just kind of continue on with life. But so what it's telling us is that all that dwell upon the earth, that's all those after the rapture. The rapture would have been taking place by the time that this starts taking place, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Those that were slain were the martyred Christians, the ones that went into the hills, that were hiding and trying to, keep this thing a secret, that, and trying not to be known. You didn't want to go into the town, into the cities talking about Jesus and talking about, him dying and coming back to life. You didn't want to talk about that out publicly because it wasn't, people were in certain places didn't really approve of that right before, and that would have been before the millennial kingdom began. At the end of the millennial kingdom, though, is where this takes place. If any man have an ear to hear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. It's letting you know that it's just telling you that the saints are going to have to fight. They're going to have to do it. I feel like a lot of this is where what were they? The crusade events. I would kind of be leaning towards that's where that comes from, the crusade events. When it's talking about in verse 10, it says that he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must also be killed with the sword. So if I'm like, for example, if I were out here saying, hey, we need to leave, we need to go out into the wilderness, we need to get away from America, get away from civilization in town, I also will be going out that way. I'm not going to just be telling you and then you go and me staying here. That's what that's saying there. In verse 10, it says, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. Him that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. The problem with this line right here, he killed with the sword and must be killed with the sword, is because after the millennial reign, you would have had people have read that and said to themselves, so if I can go out here into the world with this sword and take out people that that are in my way, I can now take that as it's okay. But as long as they're not killing me with me with the sword, it's okay that I just use the sword to take what I wanted. And in other words, they'll just use that as an excuse to do violence and to be wicked within the world. And then, but it says, and here is the patience and the faith of the saints. What that's talking about there is that the saints are they know that this is going to be a long, drawn out thing. They know that these people that there are going to be people that are going to give them a hard time. And that's the unruly people, the people that would have needed to be ruled with a rod of iron. In verse 11, it says, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell there within to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. What this is telling you is that when Satan is loosed into the world, during that time, people would have been following Jesus for the most part. There was a millennial reign. Prior to the millennial reign, you would have had people in worship and service of Rome. Well, after the millennial reign, that same principle comes back into power and rises up again. And we see that through our politics and the way our world is structured today, socially and economically and politically. And it says, and so that's what it's talking about there in verse 12. And he doth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, they that should make an image to the beast, which had his wound by a sword, and had been wounded by the sword, and did live. It's talking about Rome. Its deadly wound was Jesus. And now that Jesus' time is over, that 1,000 years is ended, that wound is re-healed. In other words, people are now starting to go look at this thing and going, I don't like living the way Jesus is telling us to live. And so they start rebelling against him. There we go, your revolutions. All right. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had been wounded by the sword and did die. That image, that's where people will cling to that, and that's the mark of the beast. We're gonna be worshiping that image. None of us are. Some people in this world may. None of us are. No one watching this video is gonna experience this to where they are worshiping this symbol or this image of this beast. It's not going to happen to us. That's why I kind of lean on this necessarily may have possibly been written before all of this happened. And then it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. It's just telling you that if you don't worship this beast, you're going to get killed. And so prior to us, I could see this happening, but today I could not see this happening. I cannot comprehend. I served in the military 15 years. I just cannot see a current state of the world where everybody, Christians alike, all variations of Christians, any one of them ending up being guilty of this. Now there may be, that could be. I could be way wrong because for a long time I thought, yep, we're doomed because everybody's going to fall for this. But I don't see how we could. We've been made aware of this way too long now. There's too many. We've had too many generations to prepare for this. Regardless of how deceived we are, the word has always been written on our hearts. And then it says in 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast and should be killed. I just have this suspicion that they're talking about motion pictures, cameras, video, the black and white photography images. I believe that that's where all of this would start taking place. It's why I'm not so certain some of these old reels and old photographs necessarily were even taken or filmed during a time that we think that we think they are. I mean, all I'm saying is that technology goes way back further than what we think it does. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. I can't remember what it's called, but there was a it was like a form of currency during Nero's time. And you had to have that, or you couldn't buy or sell or trade or do any of that. And that's where the historically, a lot of eschatology folks that get into this, that's where that comes from. When it's talking about rich and poor, free and bond, a lot of people who struggle, I would say someone who's down on their luck and whatnot, a lot of times people will use this verse here as an excuse to not pick themselves up once they've fallen. Rich and poor, free and bond, all these people even the rich people are going to go through a bad time. Not just the poor people, the rich people as well. And so a lot of times when we're struggling, people will read stuff like this, latch onto that, and just kind of give up and go, you know what, I don't have to really worry. I don't have to worry or work anymore. I can chill out and just relax and just coast on through and wait, because Jesus' time, or this time, is going to end, and all of my oppressors are going to end up suffering, for being the way that they are. That's where that line of thought comes from. And they get that out of this chapter here, and they just refuse to move to chapter 14 to figure out if there's anything more that they need to know and understand about this book. All right. On to this live cast. Spirit Church Ministry. Dear Father, please send more people to this live cast. Man, I appreciate that, Spirit Church Ministry. It says Exodus 13:9, and it says, "It shall be a sign to you on your hand as a memorial between your eyes, that the Lord's law may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt." Oh man, that's beautiful. Yeah, so I love that. Exodus is one of my favorite books. There's a lot of good information in Exodus. And I'm going to eventually, this channel is pretty new. I would like to go through line by line through Exodus, Leviticus, even Genesis. In fact, I've already started Genesis. I need to pick that back up. But I would like to continue on through those other books. As of today, though, I know that a lot of people in the church community, in the research community, the truther community, have found themselves with the realization that that something is off with our history and our historical timeline. And yeah, exactly. So yeah, all it was. Yeah, you're right. Right hand and forehead. So in Exodus, what you're referring to is how they were. All of this was foretold thousands of years ago. So there would have like there would have been some people that would have been prepared for this event, and I think that might be where you're going with that spirit of church. That yeah, even though there's a lot of people today that were that are aware of this now, there still would have been people that would have been aware of this even before it happened. So I get what you're saying. Where I'm going, what I was explaining was that in trying to understand is that there were the amount of people that would have been aware, but before and after, it's two different numbers. Today, I could see a lot of false Christians and mediocre Christians falling prey and victim to this, but there are thousands of us that just wouldn't. And, I just don't see that happening. Is all I'm saying. His glory is great. Now we are all free if you act as a man. You are a shave if you are a slave if you act as a person. Shave, slave. Yeah, I figured that's what you meant. All right, now we are all free if you act as a man. If you are a slave if you act as a person. Exactly. So yeah, so that I think I've mentioned something to that degree. It's like the flat earth and the round earth. If you subscribe to the principles of the globe earth, then you are subject to its laws and its rules. If you subject yourself to the flat earth, then you are subject to its laws and its rules. And therefore you can't compare the two, or in they're very different. They're contrasting. It's the same concept what you're talking about there. And now we are all free if you act as a man. This comes from his glory is great. If you act as a man, but if you act as a slave, you are a person. These words and terms like person, you are a one of this person, or you're one of that you're a son of that dude. You're just one of them, person, and you're not as free as if you are a man. I think that's what you're saying. All right. So getting back to where I was at, it says in verse, let's see, yeah, verse 17, it says, and that no man might buy or sell or save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name of his name. To me, this symbolizes another method of Satan trying to mirror God's word. Just like in the Old Testament, in the genealogies, we learn that there are two Enochs, there's two Methuselahs, there's two Lamechs. And so everything Satan does is a copy or a mirror of what God does. Only God does it first, and then Satan tries to repeat it. And it's almost so similar. A mirror image is really similar. If you looked at a mirror, if one that wasn't certain who they were seeing, you might not know you're looking at a mirror image. You have to see what it is first. And so what that's talking about there, and that's what I'm talking about there, and that no man might buy, sell, or save the mark. The mark, the 144,000, how they had the mark sealed in their foreheads. This is Satan's way of doing the same thing, but he's gonna try to do this before God does it. God has already done this; it's written. And what I mean by that is, when God says something, it's gonna happen. It's already happened. So like today is Wednesday. If God says that it's going to rain on Friday, well, technically it's already rained on Friday because God has already experienced Friday. You and I have not experienced Friday. The same is true for Satan. Satan knows that Friday's coming, and then it's going to rain. So if he can make it somehow rain on Wednesday, you might be fooled into believing in him instead of God. So when it does rain on Friday, now you're going, oh, well, that's Satan doing that. That's what that's telling me. And that's how I understood that once I started reading this thing the way we're doing it. That no man might buy, sell, or trade, say you have the mark of the beast. It's that symbol that God had talked about and forewarned that they would have, and now Satan's trying to imitate that. It says in verse 18, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 600 666." A lot of people in the research community have figured out that Nero equals this. This equals out numerology wise. That's where that comes from. And it's why we cling to Nero being the progenitor or culprit for all of these events right here. Let's see. Spirit Church Ministry says Satan counterfeit Sabbath is Sunday. The tree of knowledge in the garden looked like the others. Only difference was location. That's right. That's right. Jimmy Murphy says person equals mask. Makes so much sense. At his glory is great. Yes, yes, absolutely. Mask. Yeah, okay. I can see that. That makes sense to me. Thank you guys for pointing that out or in clarifying that, by the way, over in chat. Let's see. Where I just left off, it says we were talking about the 666, the mark of the beast. That's Nero. That's what that's referring to. That's all that's talking about there. All right. Let's see if I'm going to continue any more of this. I might pick this back up tomorrow with the rest of this. I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Tonight was more of a last minute thing. I was just so excited to talk to you guys about chapter 12 and 13 that I didn't want to wait till tomorrow, if I'm just being ultimately honest. I've just know that there are so many people in the Christian community that have somehow found themselves lost in the curse of chapter 13 of Revelation, where they have clung to this notion that all of this is talking about us, it's talking about you and me, and it's not. This is talking about another group of people whose time has come and gone. We're a new group of people now. We may come from these people, but we're not them. Our time is not come yet. We haven't gotten to us yet. We're in chapter 13, and we've been going through this book line by line, precept upon precept through each episode. And so far, we still have not made it to you and me today. And the reason I'm emphasizing that, for people that are new to this stuff, it's important to realize that historically, through our education system, we have been fed a bunch of garbage as far as when certain events took place, who's responsible for this event or this dwelling or that dwelling. We don't know. We didn't know, and we don't just understand all that until we research it and find out that, hey, they lied to us about this. They lied to us about that. And so when I realized that, when I finally just accepted it and just said, you know what, I'm just going to start over. And I'm just going to start looking at everything like I am a clean slate and nothing's inside my head. I don't have a memory of anything. And I went through this book, every single line, just like I'm doing now. And I did this for years, trying to unravel what this thing was telling us. I have a hard time believing certain people when they, even though what they're saying may be true to a degree, a lot of conspiracy corners, people will will tell you stuff that sounds so good, but there'd be something about it that's off. And I just have it in my mind, and in my heart, it's made up that the truth is infallible, that there is no my version of it and your version of it. It either is or it isn't. And if I continue to read through this thing, straddling that line of, well, it could be this or it could be that, then I end up putting my own thoughts into it. And so while sometimes it seems like I'm all over the place with it, it's because as I'm reading this, I'm recalling all of the rest of it. Like earlier as we were reading through, let's see, let me make sure I'm saying that right. Yeah, that's right. As we were reading through, Spirit Church Ministry pulls up Exodus 13:9. Most might would say, or some might would say, well, that has nothing to do with this. I mean, that's a different time. That's what you're saying, right, Rev? Well, it is kind of what I'm saying. But as I'm reading this, I like that you can go back through the Bible and verify that this is what we're reading about and what we're learning about. It verifies over and over throughout Scripture. It'll tell you one thing, then it'll tell you again. And if it needs you to know, it'll tell you a third time. Most of the time, everything that's truly important, especially the stuff that gets taken out of context, it's told to you three times, so that you know that it's important, that you know that it either did or didn't happen. Right here, we've read through 12 and 13. It's talking about the vials. It's talking about what the seals were referring to when we were reading about that in chapter 8 and 9. And now we're getting to the point where we've made it through all of the worst parts of tribulation. And now we've gotten to the millennial kingdom, and it's just letting you know that 1,000 years is not going to be the greatest 1,000 years of your life if you were there. For some, it might have been the most amazing time ever. But there would have been some that it would have just been a normal day, a normal hard day. Some people just have a bad luck in life, I guess, is the best way to say that. All right. Spirit Church says, makes sense that the mark has passed. Everything is deception right now. The book of Daniel was sealed. Revelation wasn't. That means the prophecy started coming true right away. Yes. And actually, I referred to that in one of my earlier episodes. Amen. Keeps away from the cherry picking verses. That's right. And that's what I don't want to happen here. I don't want people new to this to fall into that trap. That's of what Spirit Church Ministry is referring to. How the church community likes to take the Bible, pick it apart, verse by verse, scripture by scripture, piece by piece, putting it all back together and forming their own little narrative and say, hey, it says this or it says that. Whether we understand exactly what it's saying at the moment we're reading it or not, it's not meant to stay there. That's what line upon line, precept upon precept means. You read and move forward. You don't look back until you need something. Like with the Spirit of Church Ministry just a moment ago, pulling up Exodus. We just pulled that in here to further emphasize, hey, yeah, that's what you're talking about. Well, they said that over here too. It's just clarifying it. That's all that is. It's just sharpening what you're already thinking and what you're saying. Okay, like I said, I think I made my mind up on that, and I'm gonna hold off on chapter 14 for tomorrow night. And I know I started a little late, and I know I threw this all at you guys last minute, and I normally do 2 hours. We may try that. Like I said, I'm gonna try to eventually do at least 3 nights a week. Anyways, my weekends, I have no life. I don't really go anywhere. I don't really do anything. I'm not interested in my old ways. This is all that's important to me now. This is all that should be important to anyone, in my opinion. and I want to share with you guys. I want to go through this with you guys, and I want y'all to see where I'm coming from and why I say the weird things I say on social media, why certain other content creators are talking about things that no one else seems to be talking about, and why some of this stuff ends up leading into certain rabbit holes. And the reason I keep pointing out those rabbit holes is because I know that a lot of you that would be watching this have researched this stuff and have been in those rabbit holes. And I'm just showing you the links that end up sending people into those paths. Also, it is good for some people to know about those rabbit holes because it helps you visualize and understand the stuff that we are reading here. Spirit Church Ministry says, there is no ear tickling here. Either this is truth being spoken. Either this is truth being spoken. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Spirit Church Ministry. I haven't seen you a whole lot in chat. I know I've seen you the other day at least, so I'm looking forward to having you in here more with us more often. Jenny, I'm glad you were able to make it for the live this time. I know that YouTube has had this something going on in the background where people are having trouble finding this channel, so I am trying to get it out there in other areas like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever. And eventually I will get my OBS set up to where I can vertical live stream. I would like to do incorporate TikTok into this live stream as well at some point, or at least TikTok, maybe X or something like that in the future. Right now, my main focus is just building and attaching myself to this community, so that I can not only learn from you guys, but you guys can learn from me as well. Like I said, we're all in this together. We're all a family, and this isn't a competition. This is iron sharpening iron. That's all this is for. I have questions and I have things that I haven't learned and don't quite understand about this stuff, and that's why I want to talk about it with you guys, because I know that some of you that do watch me and listen do have the foresight and knowledge on things that I have yet to come into. And so I look forward to being able to catch up with you guys on all of that. If you guys were here earlier in the beginning, you noticed that we were talking about John Fry. He's going to have a channel. Well, he does have a channel, and he's going to be going live here pretty soon. Hopefully, we can get him live next week. I think that would be really cool. And I think you guys will enjoy that, especially once we get others like the Cult of Khan. Hopefully, we can get Paul, Madeline from Babylon. You have JT from JT Follows JC. And then, of course, we have Tala from Kingdom Within and his whole entire community of and whatnot, and get all of us together on this large panel. I think it'd be cool for you guys to turn on live and see all of your your favorite content creators, not necessarily myself, because I would rather be in the live chat watching and listening to all of those guys talk. But we're going to try to get that set up at some time in the future. That all said, I wanted to say thank you guys for being here. Those that did come in this evening. I know this was, like I said, not previously scheduled, but we will pick this back up tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time. And again, like I said before, if you guys can't make it, I understand. Just like I couldn't make it to one of my favorite guys and fellas to watch tonight as well. So always understand that you could always go back and watch this stuff again. I mean, there's no hurry. I do this stuff live because it's easier for me to process this information that way. Trying to sit back and make a video in a proper presentation, I've done that. I've tried that before. It just doesn't work the same for me. I don't feel it that way. I like being able to make mistakes and have it be corrected on the spot. I don't want to have to make another video later on trying to clarify something I said in another video or whatever. Either way, said we'll be catching back up with chapter 14 tomorrow. You guys have been awesome and amazing as usual, and I love each and every one of you, and I don't just say that. I know some people do. That said, Hope you guys have a wonderful evening, a wonderful Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. The week's almost over, and then we'll be starting right back over. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.